Now, I am thrilled to introduce our next speakers who are joining us to share their experiences as groundbreakers. Congresswoman Karen Bass proudly represents California's 37th district. From community organizing in South Los Angeles to becoming the first ever African American woman to preside over any state legislature in the United States, she has always been a fighter for social justice and equality. She served as chair of the Congressional Black Caucus in 2019 and 2020 and worked with the Congressional Hispanic, Asian Pacific Islander, and Native American caucuses to demand a targeted response to the COVID-19 pandemic and initiate a national needs assessment for communities of color. Emily's List is proud to have supported her throughout her electoral career. And Yolanda Caraway is the founding president of the Caraway Group. She has served as Deputy Assistant Political Director for the Mondale Ferraro 84 general election, Director of the DNC's Fairness Commission, Chief of Staff of the National Rainbow Coalition, the 1988 Jesse Jackson for President campaign, and Deputy Chair of the Democratic National Committee under Paul G. Kirk. She is also co-author of the book, For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Politics. Emily's List is honored to have this change maker on our board of directors. Congresswoman Bass and Yolanda Caraway, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, I'm Yolanda Caraway, and I'm a member of the board of directors of Emily's List. And I'm joined here today with my good friend, Congresswoman Karen Bass from California. How are you, Karen?
I'm doing just fine. Good to see you, Yolanda.
Great. I think our participants here would love to hear about your path to advocacy, how you got started in public service, and how you got to be a congresswoman.
Well, absolutely. You know, I was fortunate, I say, to grow up in a time period when activism was all around me. In a way, it was kind of like a time period like this. But growing up in the 60s and the 70s, post-civil rights movement, everything was happening around the world is really how I grew up. So I started as an activist in middle school, and I worked on a lot of community-related issues, never thought about running for office. But after spending 14 years building a community organization in South Central Los Angeles, it was time to run for office when people who were in office told me that there were no Black women in the state legislature. And that was that way because the Black women had turned out. Several of them had gone to Congress. And so that was the real push to me to run for office.
Wow, very similar. I started mine, I was 14 years old.
Yep.
And I volunteered to work on Bobby Kennedy's Senate campaign. I lived in New York State, and he was running for the Senate. And I got totally bitten by the bug. And I love politics, and I was just always involved. Never wanted to do what you do. I don't want to be the person out front, but I love being the person behind the scenes. And that's really important. It's a very important job.
Well, Yolanda, I have to tell you something. We have Bobby Kennedy in common.
Oh, wow.
The political campaign I worked on was his campaign for president.
Oh, well, I was going to do that.
I also never thought I'd be the front person either. But what has characterized my journey is when I am called for a higher reason, I respond. It's never been my personal ambition.
I totally understand. So will you share your thoughts on the progress we've made as Black women, particularly in the last couple of years, on becoming the institutional backbone of the Democratic Party and on the power of representation and visibility in this moment?
Well, I think it's interesting because we didn't just arrive. I mean, especially folks like you have been deeply involved in the party on a national level for a very long time. Just like we were the backbone of the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, we've always been there working away. It's just that lately we have gotten recognition. And I think, frankly, we've gotten recognition because we've demanded it.
Yes.
And I also think that we reached a point of critical mass where it wasn't just a few of us, there were a lot of us. And a lot of us who were obtaining positions of prominence that then led folks to not be able to ignore us.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody that polled the Black community knew where Black women were.
Yeah, that's so true. Back in the early 80s, when I first got started in national politics, the face of power was very different than it is now. It's pretty much all white men, sprinkling of Black men, and very, very few women. We've seen that change over the last 4 decades, not just with more people of color, but more women, period. Women have been using their voices to speak up for their families, their communities, critical issues of the day, such as responsible policing and fair and racial justice policies for all of our citizens. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you've been doing? You've been very busy in Congress working on George Floyd Act. And can you tell us how that was for you and where it is now and what's going to happen, what we can do to help?
Well, this is also an issue that has grown in awareness with people. I think when the world witnessed George Floyd being tortured to death, that brought an awareness of an issue that has been in our community with African Americans since, frankly, the day we arrived on these shores. So this is something that has gone on for generations. And frankly, I remember when the video was released of the Rodney King beating, which was 30 years ago this year, by the way, I thought the problem was going to be solved because no one can deny what we had known for generations, but we were never believed. It was never acknowledged. And I think that women in general can relate to this because what we go through as women with sexism also wasn't acknowledged. But now we're talking about death and murder and great bodily injury that was never acknowledged or admitted before. And so that groundswell of activity led to the momentum that we needed to introduce and pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. And so now we're working on it. We're going to get it on President Biden's desk. It's over in the Senate right now, and bipartisan discussions are ongoing. So I am very hopeful that we will get it across the finish line.
So what can we do as citizens to help get this bill on the president's table?
Well, citizens can always be involved. There are 50 senators that should be called. There's the Republican senators. Actually, there's a few Democrats you can call as well. But we need the Senate to pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. And so phone calls to senators, emails to senators, if you know people who are connected to members of the Senate, all of that would be extremely helpful. And then be active on social media. Raise this issue. We need to have it lifted up. And so any level of activity like that, that is momentum that means a lot to members because we pay attention to those phone calls, emails, letters, all of that would be very helpful.
Well, I have to ask you one question before we, I have a couple more questions, but one, just because I've talked to so many people about it. Were you in the Capitol on January 6th?
Yes, I was.
Can you tell us a little bit how, I'm horrified every time I see the pictures, but can you tell us a little bit about that experience, how it was for you?
Well, yes. And the interesting thing was a lot of family and friends were like, why are you going to go back for January 6th? It's really, I don't know what's going to happen there. And I said, you know what? I'm not worried at all because I'm going to be in one of the safest places in the country. I am worried about what's going to happen outside in the streets because we all knew there was going to be a protest, but I'm not worried about being in the Capitol. Little did I know, I would have never imagined in a million years that they would have breached the Capitol and that they would have done it in the horrific manner in which they did. So I was in the gallery listening to the debate and I had gone to my office. If I had left 10 minutes later, I would have literally bumped into them in the hallway. So I was in my office. When I got in my office, the TVs are always on because we're always listening to the news. And the Capitol had been breached and people were walking down the hall and I was just horrified. So I did an Instagram post because I was so mad. And a few minutes after I did that post, representatives of the military, because I'm near the military liaison offices, knocked on my door and told me to take my Instagram down. It was kind of chilling that they even knew I did it. But what I didn't realize, of course, at that moment was that they were literally hunting for members of Congress.
Wow.
So it's still today, I mean, I just am still horrified
Yeah, I'm sure.
Happened, and am even more horrified at how it's being depicted, such as the hearing that happened the other day, where members of Congress, I mean, one member even went so far as to say there really wasn't anything bad that happened. If you would have thought it was a group of tourists, right, beating police officers with Blue Lives Matter poles.
I don't even know what to say about that.
Not much.
Well, we're coming to an end, but I'd really like to talk a little bit about. I've really been fortunate and very proud to work with groups like Emily's List and Power Rising and Women with Black Women, Higher Heights, and all these great organizations that are working tirelessly to get more women elected to public office. It's definitely what we need in this moment. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Emily's List and how they've been supportive in your campaigns?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it is just so important to get women in office on all levels. And so in my very first campaign, Emily's List approached me, which was a bit unusual then, because Emily's List really had focused on Congress. And so I was running for the state assembly, and Emily's List reached out and provided me technical assistance and support. And I think that is very, very positive. And I'm really glad to see Emily's List be much more involved in diversity issues and recruiting diverse candidates. That is really, really important.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. This was great. It's good to talk to you. And we're going to have to get together really soon.
Absolutely. I look forward to that now that
now that we can go to restaurants.
My favorite pastime.
I know, mine too, really. Thank you, Congresswoman Bass. And thank you, Emily's List.
Thank you, Emily's List.